Story 1. Escape from the Abandoned Asylum, a tale of deception and despair. As I stepped through the rusted gates of the abandoned asylum, a chill ran down my spine. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the building loomed ominously before me, its windows shattered and its walls covered in graffiti. I had been lured here by promises of a thrilling year-end tour, but now I realized the true horror that awaited me. I navigated the dark corridors, my footsteps echoing eerily against the decaying walls. The tour guide, a sinister figure named Mr. Blackwood, led our group with a twisted smile that sent shivers down my spine. He spoke of the asylum's dark past, of experiments gone wrong and patients driven to madness. But as we delved deeper into the building, I began to suspect that there was more to his tales than met the eye. As we reached the lower levels of the asylum, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. Shadows danced along the walls, and whispers echoed through the halls. I felt as though unseen eyes were watching my every move, and a sense of dread settled in the pit of my stomach. It was then that I stumbled upon a hidden room, its door ajar and light flickering from within. Curiosity overcame my fear, and I cautiously entered, only to be met with a sight that froze my blood. Rows of monitors lined the walls, displaying live feeds of the tour group's every move. Mr. Blackwood stood before them, a malevolent grin on his face as he watched us with cold, calculating eyes. Realization dawned on me like a thunderclap. This was no ordinary tour. We were being watched, monitored, perhaps even manipulated for some sinister purpose. Panic surged through me as I realized the extent of the deception we had fallen victim to. I knew then that I had to escape, to expose the truth behind Mr. Blackwood's twisted game. With trembling hands, I searched for a way out, my heart pounding in my chest. The corridors seemed to shift and twist around me, leading me in circles as though the asylum itself conspired to keep me trapped. But just as despair threatened to consume me, I stumbled upon a hidden passage, a forgotten tunnel that led to freedom. I raced through its dark confines, the sound of pursuit echoing behind me. And as I burst out into the cold night air, gasping for breath and heart hammering in my chest, I knew that I had survived the asylum's twisted depths. But the horror of that night would stay with me forever, a reminder of the darkness that lurks beneath the surface of the world. And as I looked back at the asylum, its windows dark and silent, I knew that some secrets are better left buried in the depths. Anonymous Spectator Story. Story 2. Sinister Refuge Abandoned Asylum's Haunting Story. My name is Emily, and I am here to share with you a chilling tale that will make your skin crawl and your heart race. It all began when I decided to join a year-end tour that promised to take us to abandoned asylums with a dark and haunting history. Little did I know the horrors that awaited me within those decaying walls. As our group stepped into the abandoned asylum, a wave of unease washed over me. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the silence was deafening. Our guide, a man with a grim expression, led us through the corridors, each step echoing ominously in the empty halls. He told us stories of the asylum's dark past, of the patients who suffered unspeakable horrors at the hands of the staff. As we passed by the empty rooms, I could almost hear the whispers of the tormented souls who once dwelled within those walls. But it was when we reached the basement that the true terror began. The guide hesitated before opening the heavy metal door, warning us that what lay beyond was not for the faint of heart. Ignoring his words, we followed him into the darkness, our flashlights casting long shadows on the damp walls. As we explored the labyrinthine tunnels beneath the asylum, a sense of dread crept over me. I could feel eyes watching us from the shadows, and the sound of distant whispers sent shivers down my spine. It was then that we stumbled upon a room unlike any other, a room filled with old medical equipment and rusted chains hanging from the ceiling. As we turned to leave, a sudden gust of wind slammed the door shut behind us, trapping us in the suffocating darkness. Panic set in as we realized we were not alone in that cursed place. Shadows danced on the walls, and the sound of footsteps echoed all around us, growing louder and closer with each passing moment. In a desperate attempt to escape, we ran through the twisting tunnels, our hearts pounding in our chests. But no matter how fast we ran, it felt as though we were running in circles, trapped in a never-ending nightmare. And then, just as all hope seemed lost, we stumbled upon a staircase leading up to the surface. Gasping for breath, we burst out into the cold night air, our bodies trembling with fear and exhaustion. As we looked back at the abandoned asylum, a sense of relief washed over us. We had survived the horrors that lurked within those walls, but the memory of that night would haunt us forever. And so, dear reader, remember this tale of the sinister refuge abandoned asylum's haunting story, for not all darkness can be escaped. Sometimes, the true horrors lie not in the shadows, but within the depths of our own minds. Anonymous Spectator Story. Story 3. Desperation at the Abandoned Hospital, The Deadly Deception. As I stepped into the decaying corridors of the abandoned hospital, a shiver ran down my spine. The air was thick with the stench of mold and decay, and the only sound was the echo of my own footsteps. I had been lured here by promises of a year-end tour like no other, led by a charismatic cult leader who claimed to have special insights into the mysteries of the afterlife. The leader, known as Father Malachi, had a magnetic presence that drew people to him like moths to a flame. His followers spoke in hushed tones of the miracles he had performed, of the visions he had seen. They believed that he held the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe, and they would follow him to the ends of the earth. But as I wandered through the darkened hallways of the hospital, I began to sense that something was terribly wrong. The walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, and shadows danced at the edges of my vision. I tried to shake off the feeling of unease, reminding myself that I was here as an observer, a skeptic looking for the truth behind the facade. I reached a set of double doors that loomed ominously in front of me. As I pushed them open, a wave of cold air washed over me, carrying with it the faint scent of blood. I stepped into the room beyond and gasped in horror at the sight that greeted me. The walls were lined with rows of metal beds, each one occupied by a gaunt figure wrapped in stained sheets. Their eyes were sunken and hollow, their skin pallid and mottled with bruises. I realized with a sickening jolt that these were not patients seeking healing, but victims of a twisted experiment in manipulation and control. Father Malachi stood at the head of the room, his eyes gleaming with fanatic zeal. He raised his arms in a gesture of benediction, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Behold the chosen ones," he intoned. "They have sacrificed their earthly bodies to attain enlightenment. Will you join them in their quest for transcendence?" I stumbled back in horror, my mind reeling with the realization of the true nature of Father Malachi's year-end tour. This was not a journey of spiritual awakening, but a descent into madness and despair. I turned to flee, but the doors had swung shut behind me, trapping me in this chamber of horrors. As I stood there, paralyzed with fear, I heard a whisper in my ear, a voice that seemed to come from the depths of the abyss. "You cannot escape," it hissed. "You are already one of us." And as the shadows closed in around me, I knew that I was lost to the darkness, another victim of the deadly deception that lurked within the abandoned hospital's walls.
Final curioso.
Anonymous spectator story.